Okay, we left off in the Gemara. The Gemara had said that the case where he marries off his daughter, and it was speaking according to Rabbi, who's of the opinion that kiddushin shem Mesur Labi is not a kiddushin, that unless a person is able to consummate the marriage, it's not a marriage. Initially, from the very beginning, it was a marriage which was questionable who he's marrying. The marriage cannot be consummated. The marriage is not a marriage. So the Mishnah says he married his minor daughter and not the Bogeris. So Rabbi answers, we're speaking about there's only an adult and there's a minor. So Emor says, what's the kiddush? So it said the adult daughter appointed him to be the shliach, and the minor, he wants to marry off his daughter. And he says, I married my daughter. I married my daughter off. So the question, which daughter is he referring to? Did he act as an agent for the older daughter? Or did he attend to his personal obligation to marry off his younger daughter? It could either be a naro or even a minor, right? So that the Mishnah is telling us, you would think, so you think it's a question. So according to Rabbi, neither would be married, right? Because it's kiddushin Mesur Labi. The answer is, the Mishnah is telling us it's the younger daughter because that's his first priority, because that's his personal responsibility. Therefore, he definitely, when he says my daughter, he attended to the younger, not to the older daughter, although he could have acted on behalf of the older as a shliach. Right? That's what Emor says. Just like to talk about what we discussed yesterday, getting back 2 days ago about Breira. Person has a barrel of wine, which is tevel, hasn't been tithed, and Erev Shabbos comes, and there's not enough time actually to remove the various percentages, Truma, Meiser, Sheni, everything. So what does he do? So he makes a statement. The 2 pints that I will take out Motzoi Shabbos should be Truma. So much should be Meiser, so much should be Sheni, so on and so forth. Is he permitted to drink the wine now on Shabbos before he takes out the various tithes from the barrel? That's the question. It's Machlos Kanoim, whether he can or cannot. So Emor says, if you're of the opinion, Yesh Breiro, that although at the time that he made the statement, the 2 that I will take out should be Truma, that we say that ultimately the 2 we will take out, Motzoi Shabbos, are the 2. So that's the wine that he's drinking on Shabbos is what? Is not the Truma. It's a valid tithing. He's not drinking Truma. Or do we say, no, that because at the time, there were 2 ways to explain. When you affected the Truma cannot be identified. And whenever you affect something, it has to be identified. Therefore, the tithing is not a valid tithing. That was one interpretation. I mentioned one interpretation of a Tosa and Erevin. Whenever you affect something, you have to know what you're affecting. And since it's not clear what you're affecting till Motzei Shabbos when you take out those 2 pints, therefore, it's not affected whatsoever. It remains tevel. Or do we say no? It's affected, but since it's unclear if the 2 you will take out Motzei Shabbos are those 2 pints, therefore you may be actually drinking the truma, which means a person is not a kohen. You may be drinking the truma on Shabbos. So kohen would be permitted to drink the wine, but a non-kohen is not permitted to drink it because he may be drinking the truma. Okay, but let's talk one before. According to the understanding, you cannot affect, if you're of the opinion, ein breira, you cannot affect something when you're affecting it unless you know what you're affecting. That's the understanding, ein breira. Okay? So let's talk about our case. A man says, let's say hold, kiddushin shem Mesur Labi is a kiddushin. Person says, I married off one of my daughters. Right? One of my daughters is married to you. So we're saying it's a marriage, and he's not permitted to marry either, to be involved with either one, because the one he may be involved may not be the wife, and since achos ishto, so he has to give a get to both. According to Abaye. According to Rabba, the reason why it's not a marriage is because he can't consummate the marriage. It's not because he can't affect something which he doesn't know what he's affecting. But if your opinion ain't breira, according to Rava, it's kiddushin Mesur Labi. He doesn't know who his wife is. Could he consummate the marriage? He can't consummate the marriage. No, it's Rava. No, it has nothing to do with Breira. It's something specific to kiddushin. He doesn't know who his wife is. So I'm saying, but if your opinion ain't Breira, what do we need kiddushin shem Yisur Labiyah? Abai says he has to give a get to both of them. But when he affected one of them, he doesn't know who he's affecting. Right? But yet, it's a marriage. And Abai says he has to give the get. So how do we differentiate between this and the case of Ein Breira? Right? Ein Breira, we say it's not affected whatsoever. Yet here, one is married. We don't know which one is married. Okay? So the difference, I think the difference is very simple. Go ahead. Not a problem. Because there it's very simple. When you're dealing with liquid, how am I because it's all interconnected. So therefore you have to be specific. The two that I will take out Motzei Shabbos. Right, that's why it's a barrel of wine. Correct. Not a problem that you could say. So there it's effective immediately. And where is it? It's identifiable at the time that you affect it. The north side of the harvest. Okay? So what's the difference between the case of the 2 pints that I will take out and I am marrying one of my daughters? There you wanted to be specific. What am I affecting? Those 2 pints. Since those 2 pints at the time that you're affecting, you want to affect in a way where you're identifying. Since it's not to be identified till a later date, therefore it's not valid. It's not a valid marriage. It's not a valid tithing. If a person would say, let 2 pints in the barrel be truma. She's not identified which 2. Everybody would agree it's truma. Because whichever one, let it be truma. But here you are saying something very specific. The 2 pints of wine that I will take on Motzei Shabbos, I want those 2 pints to be truma. So since you are saying something specific, those which cannot be identified now, you can't affect something which is specific if you're not identifying it at the time when the effect takes place. That's the difference between the 2 cases. There is the 2 pints I will take out. I'm marrying you one of my daughters. One of my daughters. Which one? I'm not sure which one. One of them is married to you. We don't know which one. So one is married. Which one? We don't know one. Which one? So you could affect something which you're not aware what you're affecting. Because that's when it's irrelevant to which one you're affecting. There you want to affect something specific. When you want to affect something specific, you have to be aware of what you're affecting at the time that you're affecting it. Okay? That's how you have to differentiate between the case of the wine and the case of the daughter. So therefore, if you have the opinion that even if you can't consummate the marriage is a valid marriage, that's what, according to Abaye, both of them would have to actually give a get. Okay? Now, there's a famous Ran, as I say famous if you're aware of it. There's a case like we rule the halacha ein breira. So that means, according to Rabbi Yochanan, ein breira, when you say the 2 pints I will take out Motzei Shabbos, it's not a valid tithing. It's not valid because we're dealing with a doraisa. On a doraisa level, we rule ein breira. On a rabbinic level, we rule yesh breira. We rule yesh breira. Okay? Where is it manifested? We had the Gemara in Be'ah. In the last parak in Be'ah, a person wants to make a tchum. You can only go beyond the city limits if you make a eruvi tchumin. You put food 2,000 amos at the end of the maximum where you could go, and then from that location of the food beyond, you go an additional 2,000 amos. And he's not sure, and is a lecturer, a chocham, going to give a shir either to the north of the city or the south of the city. He's not sure where. So he wants to affect the eruv, but he's not sure which side to affect. Should it affect to the north? Should it affect to the south? So the Gemara says it's based on breira, because he wants it has to take effect before Shabbos the eruv. But he's not going to know, and the chacham's coming tomorrow, and you can only do one. It's either north or south. So the Gemara says this question yesh breira ein breira. So the conclusion of the Gemara is when we deal with a doraisa, we rule ein breira. When we deal with rabbinical, tchum is only drabanan. So therefore we say yesh breira. It's a valid eruv to be determined. No, so he puts on both sides, and the other one's not. Exactly. So by the rice we rule ein breira, by drabanan we rule yesh breira. Okay? So the Ran asks a question. Gemara says, very interesting case. You have a time-sharing situation. You have a courtyard, two people buy a courtyard, which you cannot, it's too small to divide. Right? So the agreement is we're buying it together, but we'll have time sharing. I use it on Sunday, you use it on Monday. And when they buy, they say, to be determined. Whatever we decide later, that will be our ownership in the courtyard. You will have Sunday, I will have Monday. Okay? Now, Reuven says to Shimon, after they purchase it, they get into an argument, a fight. Person makes a netter, you will not benefit from my portion. Right? You will not benefit. So now, if you're of the opinion, yesh breiro, right? So it's not a problem. Because whatever will be determined, when I use the courtyard on Monday, Monday's mine, Sunday's yours. So I'm not benefiting from yours. But if you're of the opinion, ain breiro, then Monday may be yours and Sunday may be mine. So I may be benefiting from your portion. Therefore, if your opinion ain breiro, you cannot use neither could use the courtyard unless the netter is annulled. It's a Mishnah. There's a Mishnah. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov says no. We say yesh breiro. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov. That's what he says. Yesh breiro. Therefore, even though they each one made a netter that neither could benefit from the other, each one to be determined when they divide up the week time-wise, the day which is that person's day is permitted to use it. We rule like Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov. We rule this way. Yesh breiro. Netter is a doraisa. So the Rana asks, we rule regarding a doraisa like Rabbi Yochanan, ain breiro. And here, we're ruling yesh breiro. No. If the ramification of the breiro is a doraisa, we say ain breiro. So here, dividing the property, how it's going to be divided time-wise, is the consequence is a doraisa consequence. So we rule ain. The whole idea is because it's subject to Rabbanon l'kula, we're not worried about a Rabbanon. But a doraisa, it should not be permitted. So the Ran makes a differentiation. It says something interesting. When I say shnei lugim shani yosad lahafrish, the 2 pints that I will affect. So the question is, which 2? You cannot affect something unless you know what you're affecting. Here the property is indivisible. You can't divide a property. It can only be divided time. But what we're affecting, the ownership is in what? Reuven and Shimon. It's in this property. So to affect, we know what we're affecting. It's just a question, at what time, everybody agrees yesh breiro. And that's Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov. The case where we rule ain breiro, which portion is yours? Is it A, B, or C? Which pint is the truma? We're not sure. So because when you're affecting, at the time you affect it, you're not sure what you're affecting. In terms of the object, you can't affect something and when you want it to be specific unless you know what you're affecting. Here I know what I'm affecting. Wait a second. You still know, because if you don't know which the last 2 pints are, you still don't know when the last 2 pints are. Here, the property, I know what I'm affecting. I'm affecting this particular piece of property. So it's the question, when can I use the property? But in what is my ownership? It's in the property. So the Ran says that's Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov's opinion, although we normally rule ain breiro in this, so that's how we reconcile it. We normally rule ain breiro where it's the question, what is being affected? But if we know what is being affected, it's only a question, when do you have a right to exercise your rights, then we rule yesh breiro. No. He said clearly, the 2 that I will take out, not the 2 that I will drink. So, no, Motzoi Shah, you're not permitted to tithe. Rabbinically, you're not permitted to tithe the Shah. You follow me? There's nothing, just the opposite. No, he drinks all of it and then he violated it. Of course he's not going to drink all of it. What do you mean maybe he does, maybe he doesn't? The man's not going to do something to violate. Has nothing to do with it. You know, his head, he has gray hair and he has black hair and brown hair. What does one thing have to do with another? It's irrelevant. No, that's a different. No, there's a different tchum. Can I go to the north? Can I go to the south? That's breira. That is breira. But because it's rabbinical. Because it's rabbinical. No, you don't know what you're affecting. You don't know what you're affecting. Therefore, because it's rabbinical, we say yesh breira. But if we do rice, we would say ain breira. and he gives the father money for that marriage. It's not. It's not. It's not. It's not. That's the Yesh B'Reira Ein B'Reira. That is the Yesh B'Reira Ein B'Reira. That's the same thing. It's not. No, so it would depend. It would depend. If you, according to the opinion that Ein B'Reira means it's nothing, we're going according to the understanding you cannot affect something unless it's clear when you affect it. So therefore it's nothing. Nothing. Neither. It's irrelevant, but you can't. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Free. Even a Kohen. Even a Kohen, not a problem. They were never married. It was never a marriage. Whichever one he chooses, that one is going to be the wife. And the other wife is definitely not the wife. No, we rule. No. We rule one way. We rule Ein B'Reira. Nothing. It's not. The marriage has no value whatsoever. No marriage. It's like a man marries a married woman, and then she becomes a widow. Is she married to a Kohen? She's permitted to, but you married her. You didn't marry her. You can't marry a married woman. You can't affect something if it's not clear what you're affecting. So it's not a marriage. It's nothing. It has no value whatsoever. Okay. It's logical. It's not based on psukim. Well, it is the Masorah. I mean, in that logic, what is the position? Can't you affect something if it's not clear what you're affecting? I mean, seemingly, I mean, we have a question. Other makdav shel balolam or ain't other makdav shel balolam? I mean, do you know what I'm selling you the fruits that will grow? Is that like shnei luben shani yosad lafresh? It's not, because you know exactly. All the fruits that will grow from this tree will be yours. So you are being specific, and you're affecting something very specific. The problem is, but it hasn't yet come into existence. So that's the discussion. Can you affect something which hasn't yet come about, or can you not? So that's the discussion there. It's not a B'Reira issue. Okay? The next case in the Mishnah. Mi sheyesh lo shtei kitei banos. Person has two sets of daughters. From a first marriage and a second marriage. Two women, he married, two married. So the first are older daughters, and the second are younger daughters. And he says, I married which daughter? To my older. So we have a question. When he uses that term, Hagdola, does he mean oldest, or does he mean older? So then if you're going older, we have many questions. Because every one of the group of the first is older than the second group, correct? Everyone, and the older of the second group is older than the younger. Wait 1 second. And the one up to the youngest is older than the youngest. So the Mishnah says all the daughters are not permitted, because each one is a question whether you married them or not, except the youngest of all of them. Right? That's the first. That's Rameir. Rabbi Yossi says no. Rabbi Yossi says Hagdola means the oldest. When he used that term, the father meant the oldest. No, they're not his children. There's nothing to do with him. It's his children. He's marrying them. Father's right, utsricha. Wait. As you can't. The father can only marry off his own children. He can't marry off his wife's children. Okay. Wait. No, but the question is she permitted to marry without a get? Every one of the daughters need a get, misofeg, except for the youngest. The youngest of all of them. She doesn't need a get. Right? What can't she? Of course she can marry right away. It's achos isha, monav shach. Right. Okay. Now, but we have two cases. He says Hagdola and he said Haktana. We have an argument, Rameir. Rameir says when he says the Hagdola, every daughter is in question except the youngest of the youngest of all. When he says Haktana, everyone is not permitted except the oldest of all. I mean, seemingly it's the same case. What does the second case add to the first case? So evidently, if Rabbi Yehuda Nasi states the argument in both cases, evidently there's reason to differentiate between the first case and the second case. Means the same thing. utzricha. We need both cases. Diashmina kamaiso. If I only have the case of, I am marrying you to my older daughter, according to Remeir, older. He interprets the word Hagdol means older, not oldest. Bacham Remeir. There I may have said, why does Remeir say each daughter is a suffix? You know, when a person has children, right? A girl always wants to be referred to as, this is my older, rather than my younger. Because it's an expression of value. So he refers to, this is my older daughter. He doesn't refer, so therefore, the youngest of all, he can't say, this is my older daughter. It has no relevance. But any other daughter has relevance to the term, my older daughter. Because he would prefer to refer as older than younger. Because that's the way a father refers to his children. If in any way he could compliment them or give them a sense of value because they're older, he prefers to use that terminology. But as much as he wants to call the youngest the older, he can't call her the older. Older of what? So therefore, she's definitely not the older. See, definitely when he said older, he definitely was not referring to the youngest of all the daughters. So I would say, so where's Rameir's question? Exactly what does Hagdola mean? Older or oldest? That's only we use the term older. Well, let's say a person says Haktana. Did he mean the younger or did he mean the youngest? It's not complimentary. It says next to his old, this is my younger daughter. Father doesn't refer to next to the oldest daughter as younger. Although she may be younger than the oldest, but it's not something which is complimentary. Right? He would prefer to always use the term, she's older. Therefore, I'd say there, what would Rameir say? When he uses the term Haktana, there would mean the youngest. That Haktana would mean youngest rather than younger. So I would say he would agree with Rabbi Yossi. Let's see it inside. If I would only have the first case, he said Hagdola. Since there is a daughter which is younger than her, so as long as she could be identified as older, he refers to her as the older one. But in the second case, where he used the term Haktana, I'd say he concurs with Rabbi Yossi. The Ktana, what he said, Ktana, Ktana de Kula Korilo. Who does he refer to the younger? The youngest of all of them. Because it's not something, he always would prefer to use the term older rather than younger. So what does Haktana mean? It means youngest. So I would say Rameir in the second case would agree that it's not a suffix. To who did he marry her to? He married her to the youngest. So let's say the second case, right? Let's just state the second case and not have the first case. Because if the second case Rameir argues, right, by Haktana, he definitely argues in the case of Hagdola. Correct? Abram, you with me? Yeah. Okay, good. That's where Rabbi Yossi argues. I'd say the second case, he can't use Hagdola. Haktana means, right? But in the first case, where a father would prefer to refer to her as older, as long as she's not the youngest, so he would agree that everyone is a suffix, except for the youngest of all of them. Therefore, I mean, the first case that Rabbi Yossi says, no, even in that case, older means oldest, and does not mean older. Okay? Therefore, I have to present the argument not only in the case where he says older, younger, and not only younger, even where it's older, both cases. Lememro. So what are we saying? So what's Rameir's position? Rameir's position is the Rameir Sova that a person, when he expresses himself, he'll use a term where, although later, because there's a certain ambiguity in the term which creates complications, he will use that term. Because a person always speaks in a way where it should never be questioned what he meant. That's always a person's intent. So when he says older, he always meant oldest. Because he always speaks with that level of clarity, although within the vernacular it could mean that, but in this context, because of the complication, older would mean oldest. Rameir disagrees. That a person, when he uses, he's not that specific. So therefore, since Hagdola could mean older and not oldest, it's a question, what did he mean? Rabbi Yossi said, no, lo moches inish l'sveika. A person, when he expresses himself and there's a consequence of that word, he will not express himself in a way which should ever be questioned what his intent was. So therefore, when he uses each of these terms, older or Hagdola or Haktana, although it could mean normally older or younger, in this context, because of the complication, he definitely meant oldest and youngest. Okay? So therefore, that's the argument. Okay? No, it's a question of mindset of a person. It's how do you evaluate the mindset of people. That's always an argument. You know, there's a famous question. You know, we rule halacha. If you have a hot piece of meat, the heat of a kli rishon, right off the fire, and cold milk spills on the meat, right? And you have less than shishim in the meat, less than 60 in the meat versus the milk. What's the halacha? The meat is fully permeated with that milk. Basar b'cholav, the milk was fully absorbed in the meat. Why? It's machlokes Rav and Shmuel and Psochim, whether you say sato govar or ilo govar. Do we say whatever's on the bottom consumes and subsumes what comes upon it? So if the lower piece of meat is hot, kli rishon, it heats the milk that comes upon it to give it that level of, because what is the catalyst and the transfer for anything to be absorbed? Heat. That's the transfer. If it's cold, something cold, if you have cold piece of meat, cold milk falls on meat. What's the halacha? You rinse it off, meat's kosher. Because there was no absorption. So what element do you need for absorption? You need heat. So if you have cold milk falling in hot meat, unless the meat, the milk is heated, it's not going to be absorbed into the meat. So the Gemara says, if you're of the opinion, sato govar means whatever's on the bottom overpowers what comes upon it. If you're of that opinion, so the milk is heated as a result of the meat, and therefore it's fully absorbed into the meat, and the meat is fully absorbed from top to bottom with milk. So if you have less than shishim in the meat, so the meat is fully absorbed with basar b'cholav, it becomes basar b'cholav. But from the opinion of ilo govar, it's about arguing Rav and Shmuel that what comes on top, it cools the bottom. That is the primary effect. So when the cold milk falls on the hot piece of meat, it cools it. However, if it cools it, the meat doesn't have the capacity to absorb because the meat is cooled. To what degree does it cool? But the cooling is not instantaneous. It takes a moment. So because it takes a moment, it absorbs it to hot meat kedei klipa. Kedei klipa is to shave off the thinnest surface of the meat. To that degree it absorbs. But beyond the thinner surface, it doesn't absorb beyond that because the cold milk that came upon hot meat cooled it. That's ilo govar. Ilo govar, what comes from the top cools the bottom. It's machlokes Rav and Shmuel. Okay, we rule halacha sato govar. That if the meat is hot, it's fully absorbed. If the meat is cold, although hot milk falls on it, the cold meat will cool the milk. You only have to shave off kedei klipa, the thinnest surface of the meat. Okay, maybe a little deeper. Question, maybe it's called kedei netila. So the famous question, the Tumin asks a question, Jonas Nepshe asks a question. We rule halacha if milk falls into meat and you're not sure of the ratio, if it was 60 or not. Mercer is a chulin. What do? You find yourself a kfela, an expert taster who's a goy, and you haven't tasted. And if he tells you he senses milk in the meat, then you can't eat it. If he says it tastes fine, you could eat it. So if that's the case, what's the argument? We're able to determine who's more right. Is it sato govar or ilo govar? Take a hot piece of meat in a situation, let's say milk would fall on it. After it happened, give it to a guy to taste. We have less than shishim. If he says he senses the meat in the milk, then you know one way. And if he says he doesn't, you know the other way. That's his question. That's Rabbi Yonas and Abish's question. Another question. There's a machlokes in Chulin, machlokes Tanoim. If treifa chayoch, treifa and chayoch. There are 18 locations in animal. If it's defective, it's rendered a treifa. So there's an argument. Does a treifa live beyond 12 months or does not live beyond 12 months? He says we can do a test study. take an animal, perforate its stomach, and wait 12 months. If it's still alive after 12 months, you know it's going to live. It's living. And if it dies, you know, it's not going to live. So what's the argument? And it resolved the argument. Each one holds his position, that's it. So what he answers is that there's always an exception to the rule. The question is, what is the norm and what's the exception to the norm? Of course, you have cases where what's on top could cool the bottom or vice versa. What usually happens? So one holds what you're showing me, that's the exception. The other one says, no, that's the norm. So we're talking about evaluating what the reality is. Treifa chai, treifa eno chaya. What's the norm? Of course you'll find animals dying within 12 months, animals living beyond 12 months. That's so the same thing over here. How do we evaluate the mindset of people when they speak? Do they speak with a very specific, that there shouldn't be complications later? Or people, they don't think, and therefore there are complications? So it's valuing the mindset of society. To be continued.